Well, welcome to a very special episode 5 of the 3rd season of the Sunday Extra podcast. If you are a regular viewer, you will notice that there are 2 folks missing from our regular lineup, but we have one extra.
We lost 2 and replaced with 1.
We replaced 1, so we have netted -1 people. But this is Rick Myers. Say hello, Rick, so the people who are listening can tell that there's a difference.
Hello. So who do I replace?
Well, there's Jeremy Good, Pastor Jeremy Good, and Pastor Luke Myers,
nice.
whom you might know.
I think you're acquainted with him.
Might know
you
both
might be
of them,
familiar
actually.
with Luke Myers. Yeah, so we are inches seemingly away from launching our fall semester of groups. We talked about that a bit on Sunday about the benefits of being in a group, but I know like the thing that we've been talking about is, groups are very important for a person growing, but there's not usually a ton of time on a Sunday morning during group promotion to really talk about groups because there's all the other stuff to talk about. So we want to take some time during this Sunday Extra opportunity to go a little bit more into, like maybe you're past with groups. Why on earth are you the group's director at Hope Church? Why did that make sense? And then what's coming up in groups and all those kinds of things. So,
and I think we probably should scoot back even just a little further from there.
Sure.
Because we won't make you do the whole first.
Like the singing?
Yeah, we won't give you the whole hazing that everybody did on the very first episode. But we are going to have some people listening who have no idea who you are.
Okay.
So maybe just give us, the bio of Rick,
Sure.
who you are, what you do for a living, what's your family look like, how did you wind up here at Hope back when you did, and just so people can kind of
Sure.
get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so Rick Myers, I started coming around Hope in 1986. And that was on the heels of a college ministry that really where I first started learning how to walk with Jesus. Became a believer late in high school after my brother was killed in a plane wreck. That really was the setup for me to consider that there may be more to life than what I thought was all about 3 things, which was being cool, girls, and sports. And I don't know what order that was in. But
Kind of changed up depending on the day.
Yeah, it did. And anyway, so I got to college, and that's, I got exposed to Christianity, and I was a churchgoer. My church was my family was actually pretty active, but we were all God fans. We were really not God followers. And so...
How old were you when your brother died?
I was just about to start my sophomore year in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was a real good guy. He's a really good friend of mine. He was a guy that was kind of an all-American guy. He had he was the valedictorian of his class, was an all-conference football player, and had a completely show up and we'll pay your way full ride to the University of Nebraska. He was a really smart dude.
Wow.
And when that all changed in literally the blink of an eye in a plane wreck, God got my attention in a different way that I never expected. And that continued in college, and as college came around, one of the things that the leader of our college ministry said to a group of us in the one day was just, hey, before you pick a good job, why don't you think about picking a good church and not the other way around? And I thought that was literally the craziest thing I ever heard. And then I thought about it. I mean, my wife, we were at the time, Teresa and I, my wife's name's Teresa, and we were dating in college at the time, and both of us had a similar reaction, like, that's crazy. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. So Hope was on the list of a short list of churches across the United States. And so we were, I was also considering seminary because I was a believer. And if you're a believer, you must go to seminary was my thoughts. And so I was actually thinking, well, Fort Worth made sense. There's this church on the list and there's a seminary. But I was actually training in college. I do drugs. Yes, what I did for a living. My wife hates when I say that. But I'm a pharmacist.
You're a legal drug dealer.
I am a legal dealer.
Yeah.
And so when we moved down here, we were engaged, and then we actually got married after we she came down a few months before I did. Then we went back, got married back in Wyoming. But that's why I've been here. So I've been here for 37 years.
Wow.
38 years. 30 almost. We'll be pushing 39 pretty quick here.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have, Hope's just been a real big key part of our lives. We've raised our 4 children here. I have 2 boys, 2 girls, and I've got, which only really is the conduit to what really matters, and I have 11 grandkids. So, yeah.
11 grandkids.
11 grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah. And fortunately, 6 of them are in the area, so I get a chance to see them pretty frequently, and that's just nothing but joy.
Yeah.
That's great.
So you alluded to this, but what do you do when you're not the group's director?
So
What do you do to put food on the table?
So I'm a pharmacist. I actually work in a healthcare system here. I oversee some hospital pharmacies.
Okay.
So I've got about 160 employees across 3 different campuses, and I spend my time going between those 3 campuses and trying to be a help and an encouragement.
Cool.
And I have a lot of problems I have to deal with and fires to put out. But yeah, it's mostly administration. My job as an administrator.
So you started out, though, actually, as the pharmacist.
I started a pharmacist and enjoyed that. And over time, started becoming a little bit more of a supervisor than a manager type of thing. And now I'm called a director. Now I'm a regional director of pharmacy, whatever that means.
Means you're over a region, I guess.
A region, that's right.
Sure.
I just a little detour here because of what you said. I was remembering when you were saying that kit that you showed. It's got all the different natural.
That your dad.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
from the 1935 was that kit was put together.
Yeah, and so I was on a mission trip to Europe years ago, working with one of our partners, the student ministry partner, and so I stayed in a room with a student. He had an extra room, and he was a pharmacy student, and he was big into hiking, and we went and hiked around this beautiful place outside of Jena, Germany. This is in East Germany, and he's being a pharmacy student. Like part of that, I guess they're really into some of the more natural side of things. And so we were hiking along, and he's pointing out these different things. It's pretty fascinating. He's like, you could chew on this leaf and that would, have this effect and help this way. And then it's the one, to me, the untrained person, it looks just like the last one, he said. And it's whatever you do, you don't want to touch this one because, so I'm I could either relieve my pain or I could poison myself to death, and it really does help to know the difference. But anyway, it was fascinating, just him pointing out those things. But that made me think of that kit that you showed because it's got all the pieces minus one, right?
Minus one.
Essentially, pharmacy was that. It was a natural pharmacognosy was really that's the plant-based side of pharmacy, which was essentially everything at the time. And over time, we've now moved to a synthetic reality of pharmacy, not so much a natural, but. Yeah, there's still a lot of things that were derived from plants that are still out there that we use.
So making a hard shift away from drugs.
Let's do that.
What was, you've been not just the group director at Hope for a number of years, but you've been, you and Teresa have been group leaders for a very long time. I'm gathering that you like groups and that started somewhere.
Yeah.
So how did you what was your first group experience like? And I guess what out of that was these are awesome and I would like to this seems like this is a part of how God has called you to lead. So.
Yeah, I would agree. Groups have been a real key part of just, I think, my life since I've been at Hope. But I'll start back at the beginning. When we first came, I guess my first group I started attending was in January of 1987, which dates, I was 3, if you can do the math. I was a 3-year-old. But no, we were, again, engaged, about to get married. But I started going to a guys group. It was held at someone's house, and it was about, 12 to 15 guys were in this group. And I was probably the youngest, but no one was that much older. Everyone was a little bit older than me, but not much, a little farther along. And interestingly, in that group of men, there was really only one guy there who was trying to impress everybody. And that was me. And I just, you know, I'd just been that type of person. And I suddenly was around guys who no one was trying to impress anybody. And it was really rewarding and refreshing because it was just a bunch of guys that literally, they had a faith that was deeper than you realized at first because it took a while to get to know them. But it was super real. And you know, they just dealt with life. They were sharing their struggles, they were sharing their challenges, and yet they were trusting God all the way through. And the more I hung around them, I realized that I was the lightweight of the bunch, because I just was, you know, still fairly new in the faith, but thinking I had a lot of answers. I don't know. It was really refreshing and disarming because they were just guys just, you know, struggling with life, but trusting God all the way through. It was great.
I think one of the things, I mean, I just want to kind of go a little further with this. You mentioned you were in a guys group.
Yeah.
And, you know, if today we have at Hope, we have groups for men, we have groups for women, we have what we call mixed groups, you know, where it doesn't matter. Men and women can come together. So I think one of the things that we try to do, you know, especially if you're new around, you might feel uncomfortable with going to a group of guys that you don't know all by yourself. And it's you know, you start out with maybe going with your spouse, but I think really where you really can grow is when you actually, guys get in a group with guys and ladies get in a group with ladies. And then what ends up happening, you know, even naturally in the mixed group, is everybody's together maybe for the discussion or part of it, and then you kind of, you know, break. Guys will go in one room, ladies go in the other, and you start to get a little deeper. But I'd like to, you know, why is that really we can go a lot deeper when we're with, you know, guys with guys and ladies with ladies?
Well, I think that's a lot of this is pretty straightforward and obvious, right? I mean, there's just things that guys struggle with that are unique, and that there's things that ladies struggle with that are unique to ladies. And it's not right or wrong. It's just the reality of who we are, how God made us. And I think that when you're able to be honest and, you know, and really honest, I mean, just, you know, just sharing life and not, like I said, not trying to impress, that when you hear other people that have going through the same thing and or have been through the same thing and have learned from that, it's gosh, you're literally doing life together with them. You know, they're kind of, you can see how they've struggled with that. They've learned from it. Maybe God has taught some things from the Word in that. And I don't know. There's just a lot of power that people don't realize when they're around other people that they're marching through life with them. I think the thing I'd like to say about that is, at one point in time, I used to say things like, "Hey, for your kids, boy, it really matters that you're hanging around a good pack." And that's very true. It's super important who the kids, our grandkids, whoever, who they hang with is a huge deal. I pray about that, but I've changed that line. I don't say that anymore because I've figured out I'm 62, and it matters throughout your life who you hang with. The pack of people you run with is a really big deal. And I just think having a good pack of men that can encourage you and can call you on some things maybe as well when they start seeing you step away, it's just super invaluable. And groups can do that.
Yeah, I think I mean, one of the things I brought here, I don't know where it would come up, but I think what you just said is pretty interesting and really helpful. There's times where we need to sort of take a relational inventory of, you know, who are we spending time with, and you know, there's a couple of quotes. You know, I've heard it different ways, and it's attributed to different people, but it's basically like, you'll be who you are in 5 years because of the books you read and the people that you're around. And you know, there's variations of it, but it's interesting how groups actually combine both of those, because there's an element that you're studying. It's not only about the study. And in some ways, the study is irrelevant because we need to get together with other people to grow. But it's really as important who we are together with. And then this is another quote. Are those around you in your innermost circle bringing you closer to Jesus or taking you further away? Talking about your inner circle.
Yep.
And we have to relate to a lot of different people in our jobs, when you go to the grocery store, when you, whatever it is you do. But we're talking about your inner circle. Like, how are they influencing you? And and then people have these different categories for them. When I heard somebody talk about, like, you got people in your life that are VIPs, they're very important people, right? And they're the ones that call you forward, and they're really, like, you see them and you're like, I want that. I want to have that in my life. Then you can have very neutral people. Let's call them the VNPs. And those are the ones, like, they're fun to hang around, but and there's not anything wrong with the relationship, but like, okay, if I want to play, right? And I particularly remember when I was in college, like, there was a group of guys that I'm like, we weren't really serious together, but it's like, I just want to go have a good time. Then, like, those are the guys. Now, other guys helped me grow in my walk with Christ, but it wasn't these guys that were just a lot of fun. And we weren't getting into trouble, but it wasn't very serious. And then there are, unfortunately, what we can refer to as the VDPs, the very draining people. And these are people that actually can bring you down. And and again, sometimes if let me tell you about so and so in my life. They're in my life and they're draining me. Okay, well, there's people we can't do with. But when it comes to picking our friends and the people that we intentionally, willingly want to spend time with, we kind of want to minimize those, right?
Yeah.
You want to pray for those people and you want to love them, but and I can even see in my own life. I know there are people in extended, we'll call them extended relationships. Maybe it's like you go home for the holidays, right? And you're around some family members and you can just feel yourself after, even a few hours, like, man, the world is awful, right? I don't know how we're going to make it. And I don't feel that way when I'm around the people that are really calling me forward to Christ. So it really is important who we let into our lives and influence and who we spend time with.
Wow.
You said something that I think is true about group meetings, which is like the thing we're studying is sort of secondary to what's actually happening in the group. Like, it's what the book is or what the study is or whatever it is. That's a good excuse to get people to the meeting, but that is not where the real thing of the group happens. My experience has been that the power of the group happens over a bowl of chips. After the discussion is over, there's a bowl of chips between all the guys, and maybe there's some salsa or queso or something, and that's when you're talking about, this is what's going on with my kids, or this is what's going on at work, or all those kinds of things. It seems like, had you not had the discussion, we wouldn't have the inroads into each other's lives, but like the doing life part happens strangely over chips or cookies.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, to your point, at Hope, our focus of groups, and I don't want this to come off wrong, because our curriculum really matters.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing, what we're studying, what we're going together really does matter. We work hard to make sure that that's been vetted,
mm-hmm.
and that's something that Pastor Matt's really been helpful with over the years. But and Pastor Bullock before then, Pastor Harold. But that is not the primary end point or the goal. Is to just make sure we have a whole bunch of really good knowledge from that curriculum that we've learned.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. But rather is that, we really want people to connect with one another so that they can grow in a deeper walk with Jesus. But that connection is really the goal, because the end goal is about walking with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that a curriculum really is important, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
And some have really been extremely helpful to me. but not as helpful as the friendships that I've developed over the years and the really, deep-seated brothers in Christ I've got to know.
I mean, it's kind of like, I know how much Brian enjoys baseball, so I'm going to pick on baseball a little bit, because when I go to the baseball game, like, I don't watch baseball on TV, but I go to the game because of who I'm going with. Yeah. And like, there's a game happening, and, it catches your eye from time to time, especially if there's multiple foul balls coming into your section,
in the right place.
Like it did when we had our family night at the ballpark earlier this summer. But
your wife made it on TV.
I know, we all made it on TV. Actually, thanks to our producer's husband, Jordan. He sent some pictures, like still shots of the horrified look when the ball almost hit the children.
I haven't seen that.
We'll show you later.
See the pictures.
I was having the best time, and Jessica was saying, like, this is my worst dream of going to a baseball game come true. This ball kind of but the ball was right there.
Yeah. But the curriculum is important. We can't have bad curriculum.
No.
But there's so much more than just showing up for some content. And then this is where I would say,
and it's also better than just, let's go out and grab coffee with the guys and just chat about whatever. The content is important to focus.
So it helps set the stage.
Yeah. But we actually have, we have multiple types of groups here at Hope, because in the end there's different goals for the groups. Mm-hmm. So the area that you lead out in is primarily our community groups and our connection groups.
Right.
And then we also have discipleship groups, which have a different goal. And they are, more, we could say they're more intense. It is a smaller group. We're looking for accelerated season of spiritual growth. Mm-hmm. And those groups are guys meet with guys and ladies meet with ladies, and it's probably a group of 3 to 5 people instead of what's the typical size of our connection or community groups?
Yeah, we 10 to 12.
10 to 12. Yeah. And then there are groups, and sometimes this is harder for people to understand if they're coming from maybe another church background, is they're looking for like deep Bible study groups where the focus, when I quote, I always have to ask people, what do you mean by deep Bible study, right? Because sometimes I think we have this misunderstanding that, deep is, it's hard to understand. Like, if I have no idea what I was reading and I have no idea what they were talking about in group, and I therefore have no idea what to do with it, that was deep. That's a waste of time, honestly. So the deep part comes from holding God's word up to your life like a mirror and saying, here's what God's word says. Now, how am I doing it with that? And so, I think it can be a wrong perspective on the deepness of it. Deep means not hard to understand, but hard to apply. And that's really what, we want people to connect relationally and then take whatever this thing is that we're, quote, learning, that the focus of the curriculum is to then apply that to their lives. And the 3 of us could be in group together. In fact, we were in a discipleship group together, 2
years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we can read the same thing like we did, which was great. We read the same thing, and then the Holy Spirit spoke to us in different ways about how we needed to apply it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the application part. So, what if somebody was trying to decide, should I join a community group or a connection group? How would you help them, kind of wrestle through that?
Yeah, our community groups are groups that we're going to form and have essentially the same people in for that entire year. So we'll start in September, and we'll take that through at least May, if not all the way through July. But you're really getting to know and do life with people. And sometimes that takes some time to get to know them better and to form those deeper relationships. And so a community group is great for that. It's a really good opportunity for you to really do life with people. I I think connection groups are just, they're semesterly based. So we focus on a semester and then we reform, reshape, and start all over again that following semester. Nothing wrong with that. And if it's your first time to be in a group at Hope, that's probably the best choice. And by all means, we really encourage people to. I think the hardest things about groups when you're trying to make a decision is if you're looking for something that's just absolutely perfect, it may not be the perfect place, the perfect time of day, the perfect leader, the perfect whatever. But I just encourage people just to step out and take that first step of, hey, especially if you've not been in a group before, just trust God that he's going to meet you there. I've had so many people that have said, I didn't know about groups. I've heard about them. I just never really want to try one. And as soon as they do, they're like, why didn't I do this before? Why did it take me so long to start seeing the advantage? Because there's a whole lot of good things that come out of it.
We don't want it to be the best kept secret, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think, and I think when you're starting out too, there's this fear, that some people can have about like, well, I don't know these people. Am I going to like them? How are we going to get along? Yes, you don't know them. And if you don't know them, you don't know if you're going to like them. But, what are we promising and what are we not promising with our groups is, I think, is another thing important. So I'll tell you my thought, and I'd love to hear, how would you add to that, or let's, kick something around. But I think what we're definitely not promising with our groups is you're going to find your best friend. Now, a byproduct of it may be that you really connect with somebody and years go by and you develop a deep friendship and somebody becomes a really close friend. But we're not promising that you're going to find your best friend the first time you do groups. And we're not promising that every group that we have and every curriculum that we offer is going to meet every specific need that somebody might have. Again, what we do, we pick things that generally are things people tend to be dealing with, but then they're going to show up in specific ways. So again, we could, we had a series that we ended on the financial squeeze. So we could read a book on, a book on giving, a book on generosity, a book on budgeting. We could go through something like that and all come with different questions and I'll take something away from it. So it's impossible to have a specific book that's specifically about every need somebody has. And then even, our pattern has been in the fall, we typically try to do some kind of a campaign, which means all of our groups are studying the same thing that's kind of related to what we're talking about on Sunday mornings. And then in the spring, our groups are more, different topics and different books. And, so we're getting geared up for the fall right now. So it's pretty much like, if you're like, we're going to go deeper with what we're going to be studying on Sunday. But when it comes to the springtime, you're like, well, there's just not really any groups I'm interested in. Well, are you interested in growing with Jesus and being around a group of people that can help you grow?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So which one do you hate the least then? And you still need to get in a group. So I think those are a few things that, what are we not promising that, I just want to be clear with that groups can only do so much.
Yes.
And we also get out what we put in.
Yes.
And if we don't ever go to one, then we don't get the benefits of it. So anything else you would add about that? Well,
I think one of the things you started with was just reminded me of a conversation I literally had on Main Street today with a guy, and we were talking about groups, and he made the comment. He said, over the years, he and his wife have tried to, gravitate toward groups where their friends were, and because that's where they develop their best friends. Because that's where my best friends have been developed over the years. Literally, have been through groups. But anyway, but he said, in one of these choices they had to make for one of the years, he said, it just didn't line up. There were, we didn't have any of the friends that we really knew were in this group. And yet this group made the most sense for our schedule or whatever it was. And we went ahead and chose to go ahead and be in that group, even though we really didn't know anybody in it. And he said, we get there the first week, and my first thought was, oh, this is so awkward because I don't know anybody here, and this is not going to go well for me, my wife, and you know the rest of the story. You know where I'm heading, right? Because at the end of the end of that semester, and it wasn't even that long into it, he said, yes, it's true, it wasn't his best friends or her best friends there, but they had so much fun in this group. They said it was one of the best experiences they've ever had, and it wasn't people they knew.
Yeah. Well, I think going to group, there are advantages and disadvantages of being in group with your really close friends.
Right.
You know, I mean, one of the advantages is you're naturally going to feel maybe more open to share more openly. You can maybe go, further, or you can go faster, and you don't have to give all of the history of like, okay, I'm in the middle of this really dicey situation at work or with my family. Now let me catch you up on the last, 18 months of my life so that you can understand where I am today, because they've been with you. They know. But I think another thing that happens, and this is where I think that's awesome what happened, because we tend to kind of rub each other smooth when we just are around the same people. And then when we get in group with other people, that causes us to maybe be confronted with some things that we previously haven't needed to be confronted with, and it's new areas of growth. So, for example, if I've been in a group with you guys, for a while, and let's just say one of the things God wants to grow in me is maybe like my harshness or my abrasiveness. You guys are at the point where you're like, well, you love me because you know me, and you might excuse some things, like, well, that's just Matt, And then I get in a group with a whole new group of people, and the group leader's like, hey, we're glad you're here, but we don't talk to people that way. What did I do? And I don't even know that I'm doing it, maybe, but they says, well, just that was really harsh. You cut that person off. You in the middle of what they were talking about. You didn't, another group was going to do it graciously, but I get the message now, like, oh, there's some things I need to learn.
Exactly.
And then this new group of people is just going to challenge me in a new way. So sometimes we're afraid to have that new experience, but that new experience is actually the catalyst for new growth God wants to have in our lives. I'm sure I'm the only one that's happened to.
The only one.
I did have, okay, so let's say, so I think this is true of the person or persons that I know listen to this show. I think they're newer around Hope. I don't know if they've been involved in a group, but what is a normal group meeting like?
Yeah, great question.
Like, I'm going to have to sign a form and then go to a stranger's house, potentially.
Yeah,
how can we make it less strange?
Well, two things. They're not always at houses. Sometimes they might be at a restaurant. They might have them at a, we've over the years, we've had more groups meet at Central Market probably than any other location. And it's not unusual to be at Central Market in a group and see one or two other Hope groups there.
I was taking my daughter to like a daddy-daughter date, and we went to Central Market. Yeah. And we saw at least two other groups there that we walked past.
That's hilarious.
And it was kind of funny. At one point, it was like, my daughter just kind of looked at me like, all these people, Daddy? And like, she didn't have no idea who they are because they're a bunch of adults. And I'm like, yeah, I know some of them. They all go to church with us and their groups meeting.
That's great. So, so typically, and there is no scripted answer here which is great, which I don't want there to be. Mm-hmm. But typically, most people are going to show up, and most groups are going to be an hour and a half.
Okay.
And most people will show up, especially at someone's house, and there may be some refreshments there, and people maybe hang out for, 10 minutes, and then or at least some welcoming period of time. Then there's going to be a time when everyone gets together. And if it's a guys group, the guys are always all, with guys. If it's Matt, you alluded to this earlier, if it's a mixed group, there may be a time halfway through-ish that the men might separate from the ladies. But essentially, there'll be some discussion about, what's coming up to get some announcements out of the way, and then they're going to talk about the curriculum. And there'll be some questions that people ask, and typically the questions are not going to be written in such a way that you either had to have been at church that Sunday, if it's based on the sermon, or that you had to have read the curriculum. It'd have been better had you read the curriculum. Maybe we're going through a book of the Bible, or maybe we're reading another book that was an author of a Christian author on a topic. But it's still going to be a question that's going to be relevant for all of us to be a part of that discussion. So, and you don't have to feel, I can't go this week to group because I didn't finish the reading.
My homework.
Yeah.
There is
not
not
like school.
that. It's not that. And so we're not going to ask. It's going to be an opportunity, and it's going to be aimed at very practical. How does it affect me in my work? How does it affect me in my family, my life, my spouse, my kids, whatever? It's going to be geared more toward that, so it's not so highfalutin, I guess is the way to say that. And then at the end of that, there'll be a time when typically then we break up and pray. And if it's definitely the guys would go and pray with the guys, and the ladies would pray with the ladies. And then at the end of that, there's going to be another time for some refreshments. To your point, the water cooler talk at the end is often the best.
Yeah.
And you have a chance to then, hang around for a bit and really get to know people better.
You sound like you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that it's not like it's not like school. Like if life gets in the way and you're like, if it's a sermon discussion group like we're going to have in the fall. If I missed Sunday because I was sick and I didn't have time to watch the online, but I'm better now. Should I go to group or not? Yes, go to group. The answer is always go to group.
Yes,
and you can still participate if you didn't get the material read, because we're looking at how does this apply to our lives, and maybe you don't go first in the discussion, but as you are hearing other people, there's often maybe a recap of like this week we read a chapter about such and such. Yep. So let's talk about this, and again, very focused on what do we do about it? A couple of like just basic questions we can even ask ourselves when we're just reading a book is like, whatever it is I just read, what do they say? What does it mean? And what should I do about it? So if you just read a book on, being kind to your spouse, well, what do I need to do? I need to work on being kind to my spouse.
Yeah.
So trying to keep practical, but it's not like you're signing up for a college course,
right,
or something. It's meant for our own benefit and our own growth.
So then my question is, it's in the program, or it's in the catalog. So we've talked about this fall, there's going to be a sermon series that groups are going to be discussing. Do you want to go into what that is, what that series involves, and all of that?
Yeah. So this fall, our groups are going to start the week after our big day Sunday. So we're going to start a sermon series where we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about anxiety. It comes from a passage in Philippians 4. Be anxious for nothing. We actually see the scripture says that. That's what the title of the series is. So that short series is when groups are going to start. And this is the forming part where you have your first group meeting. People kind of get to know each other, so you can be a part of group for a little bit.
And don't be too anxious about going to group.
You have to be anxious about going to group. But then we're going to what we're going to be studying is the next series. And that is we're going to be doing a series on the I am statements of Jesus. So that's what the curriculum will be, and we've put together a what would you call it, Brian? A study guide of sorts.
We're calling it a reflection journal.
Reflection journal. Okay.
So it'll have. So all the I am statements are in the Gospel of John, and so there'll be a chunk in there that is sort of context around when Jesus says that, with some discussion questions of if Jesus said,
give us an example.
Like, I am the door, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the good shepherd. I'm the resurrection and the life. And, if Jesus is those things, then how does that impact either who I am because of Jesus, or how can I live differently because of Jesus, and those kinds of things. So there's I think there's space for taking notes. It's probably not a full week. I think we've done curriculum in the past where it might be a 5-day curriculum. Like, I've got a day 1, day 2, day 3. It sort of supplements your quiet time between group meetings. I don't think this is that. This might be one quiet time between group meetings, but you can always, it's the Bible, so you can revisit it multiple times and see what's there.
Yeah, but really being able to reflect on this part of when Jesus is explaining, who he is, and each of those statements, they're not just words. There's a lot wrapped up in the meaning of when he says that he is, when he says, I am those things. I think first and foremost, this is the whole I am statement from Jesus directly goes back to Moses and the burning bush when God says, I am who I am. So when Jesus said, before Abraham, I am, the people that heard him knew exactly what he was saying. And then each one of those things, and we look at the names of, there are lots of different names of God that are used in the Old Testament, Hebrew names. And God is all of those things, but when a part of his character or his nature is being accentuated, well, we see some parallels to that in Jesus. Jesus is the resurrection. Jesus also is the bread of life. Jesus is the good shepherd. He is the vine and we're the branches. And what does that mean when you think about what does the vine do and what do the branches do? So we're going to be looking at that, and there has also been a level of intentionality that we start out talking about anxiety and how do we get help, but to the cliche is like, well, Jesus is the answer. What's the question? So Jesus really is the one that helps us with our anxiety. And then we're going to spend the next 7 weeks after that short series really digging into who is Jesus and how does he impact my life. And then that's what we're going to be able to talk about in group. So I think it'll be a little bit different than maybe, certainly it's different than what we did last year. In the fall, but I think there's a lot that this one's going to have a lot more, what you could say, like space in it, rather than just so you have a daily reading that you need to read through, which is helpful. So for some people, they might read that passage, every day that week and think about it. We're trying to model the Hear Journal, which we use in our discipleship groups specifically, but that's a good way to try to think about, okay, what is it that I read? What does this mean? What am I supposed to do with it? How do I respond to God's word? So that's what we got on the docket in terms of the curriculum, and then all the other relational things are there no matter what. And then
there's the stuff that God's just going to bring into life that you have to deal with over the course of the semester. That will inevitably show up in the middle of a group meeting.
We also encourage that at least one time a semester you go do something that's not a group meeting. Go to something. What does that
mean?
Yeah. FUN.
Which is not to say the group meetings aren't fun.
No.
We now have to schedule
the highlight of that. That's right.
Because you started a thing
outside group.
Matt, you started a thing a couple of years ago, like just kind of refocus what a group meeting was, and I think the top of your list was fun. Why is that?
I like to have fun. No, I think
because it was like fun, and then like 4 C words or something like that.
Yeah, that was. Now we're getting into how the sausage is made here, because that was primarily for our group leaders. Yeah. But I think we all have a different bent. Some people really love to study. Some people, even in the know be do. Like for some people, the knowing part is easy, And then the becoming and the doing is hard. For other people, like, I'm a doer. It's knowing and then becoming. And other people are just easier to become. But I think when we think about, at the core, the word fun is relative. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of fun with Luke, because Luke is not from the generation Brian and I are from. So what Luke would consider fun might be different than Brian and I, which is why we have kind of a different groups for different people. But generally speaking, I think we all want to have fun. And I remember one time somebody kind of got offended by that word fun. And I understand they had some baggage to it. And I said, okay, well, it totally messed up my my acronym that I created, a little equation, rather. But I said, what is enjoyable to you? And then, so they had baggage with the word fun, but then they understood the point of what's enjoyable. So I think if you're not having fun, or you're not having an enjoyable experience, you don't want to go back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why so many people don't go to the dentist when they should is because the dentist is not an enjoyable experience, right? If it was fun, like ice cream, a lot more people would be going to the dentist. Well, so we want to start with it being fun, being enjoyable. And if people are coming to the group and they're having an enjoyable time, then they're more likely to connect with others. They're gonna connect. They're gonna open up. And then that leads to caring. Like, if I actually begin to know who you are and what your needs are and what you're going through in life, then I can encourage you. I can care for you. And then we do have to show up for something. Like, we normally wouldn't sign up to a group to just hang out. Now, certain age groups show up to game night, right? But there's still an agenda. Like, you're going to play a game. It's, so it's starting with enjoyable, that. But so the group does have to have some kind of curriculum that we're circling around. But if we started with the curriculum and so focused on that, which again, we're not, obviously bad curriculum, right. Theologically in error curriculum, all that stuff is taken out. But if the focus is so much on the curriculum, then you might not be having an enjoyable time, and you never get to the connecting and the caring. So that's why we want to start with that. But then there's times where you just need to have a different experience, Yeah. I mean, because you could be meeting in a home and sitting in a living room and having really great discussions about something, but then just by the fact that, say it's a guys group, and you're like, hey, you know what, this week we're gonna all go get barbecue together, and you're in a barbecue place. It's a different setting, it's a different environment. People aren't sitting where they had been sitting every week, so things are kind of mixed up a little bit. Your discussion's gonna be different. That's a good thing for people to do, is to have that other kind. And I think we absolutely take God's word seriously, but we sometimes take ourselves too seriously. So we just want to get out and do something different, have a fun or enjoyable time, depending on which word is more acceptable in your vocabulary.
Well, I remember hearing something from a friend of mine from a past job situation of, somehow God has made us to where if we can laugh and have a good time with each other, that does tend to open up the relational connection between people. Like, if Rick and I laugh together, even if we don't have all of the same interests and all, we start to become better friends just because either we shared a meal together, or we laughed together. And so his words into my life will come into my application or whatever. I'm coming up with all technical terms, but he can say stuff that really impacts me more than if I just walk in cold to a group of strangers and it's all curriculum all the time. That fun aspect really does start to melt some of that weirdness, and then as the group goes along, we have had an enjoyably fun time together, and so you never know what that one person might say that they have no idea that they said anything, that totally like, oh, that's a whole other perspective of life that that really helps shape how I talk to my wife, or shapes how I talk to my kids, or all this kind of stuff.
Totally.
And I wouldn't have been open to it if I'm coming in just to learn. I came in at some level, I came to hang out with some enjoyable people.
To your point, back to that first group meeting that when I started attending, Teresa attended a ladies group that wasn't exactly the same spouses or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever, but it was similar. I mean, it was a similar group of guys, and we matched up fairly well with the ladies. But anyway, my point is that because of that group, we started doing our marriage differently. We started some values that these other men and women were doing in marriage that we hadn't thought of. And then fast forward, we started watching them. They were several of the couples were a little farther ahead of us, and they started having kids before we did. I'm telling you, we parented differently because of the examples that were in front of us, that were good examples, that were like, oh my gosh, I would never have thought of that. And that wasn't something we taught in group. It wasn't like a curriculum. Yeah. It was just hanging out with these people, watching their lives and saying, oh my gosh, that's a really effective way to deal with your children. And anyway, so it's more than just, that's why groups are so important, is because you do life with people, you really can learn and grow.
Now, when you do life together, life is messy, right?
There you go.
So there's all kinds of messes that are just going to happen, and that's okay. I think one of the messes that I was like, I want to go here for a minute, it has to do with childcare.
Ooh.
So
that does provide.
Do we have to talk about?
Yes, I think we need to. I think we need to talk about this because it's a real thing.
It is a thing.
In fact, this is Brian. You often talk about how I like data and I like numbers. So. Hope is we are approaching, and as we get to January, we will officially have our 48th anniversary as a church. We're moving towards 50, and the average church that is 50 years old, the vast majority of the people attending a near 50-year-old church are basically in their 50s and 60s and older, and childcare is not an issue, right? Because your kids are launched, and you get to have a lot of fun with your grandkids, but they don't permanently stay there, right? You can have fun and then give them back. So, but our church, and this is a data thing. I had David look at this the other day. I was just kind of curious about this. So, I read somewhere that the median age in Tarrant County is like right around 35, I think.
Oh, wow.
And so I had him look at, of all of our members and attenders and kind of where we're at. Well, we're lower than that 35 number, which is actually pretty good.
That is good.
But that means we got a lot of young families. We got a lot of kids. And, these are our adult groups. The groups are primarily for the parents, for the adults. So, different groups do a lot of different things, but I think it's important, if somebody's newer to groups, newer to Hope, they're thinking about it. So, how should people be thinking about this aspect of childcare?
Well, I think the first thing is, let's not let that stop us from meeting with people in groups, right? Let's just have a real focus of, we're going to figure this thing out. I think that's the first starting block, is that, we're going to find a way to get groups are that important. We're going to find a way to make this successful. And so some groups you'll find in our catalog this fall, we do have a couple groups that are going to be focused more on providing some measure of childcare in their groups, but that's group leader dependent. We do have a moms of preschoolers this fall, and there will be that will actually be meeting here at Hope, and there will be a paid childcare option for those who want to bring their younger kids.
Meaning the group members are paying for the childcare. Is that what that means?
That's correct.
Like we're organizing it and facilitating it,
but they have to.
They got to pay into it. Yeah.
And then some groups are going to be, some of the, historically, we've had young family groups the husbands and wife met together, and they might have, as a group, figured out a way to pay for childcare. And the childcare would be on site or close, maybe a house that's very close, adjacent or something. But, and sometimes we've had groups where one of the models that has been fairly popular is for a couples group of young family age, that in a 4 week a month, 1 week of a month, everyone's together, men and women, and then the next week it's going to be just guys, and the next week is just ladies, and then the next week is going to be literally everybody with their kids. And so that alleviates the childcare, of course, for the just guys, just ladies, and everyone with kids. So that's 1 week a month that you now need to find a way to find some babysitting. And in a semester, that's more like, it's like 4 months. That's four times.
Yeah.
So it might be, the onus might be on the parent then to find their own childcare. And we do that when we go on dates. Mm-hmm. And we do that when we go to events that are really important to us. We make a way. We find a way. We that there is a measure of, burden that we carry as parents, that we have to find a way to take care of our kids. So that's been a popular option. But then that's back to the group leaders, and sometimes the people even in the group will naturally pool their resources and do childcare together, even when it's not maybe structured or sanctioned or led by the group leader, but they'll just on their own. That'll kind of find its own way.
Yeah. So question, if you've got kids in the home, young kids, and you're thinking about signing up for a group, that's one of the questions you want to ask the leader. Yeah. And the leader might say, we are not doing anything with childcare. That is completely on the group members to figure out on their own, at which time you need to, get a friend, a neighbor, a grandparent, somebody, just like you'd have them watch your kids if you're going to go out on a date or you're going to go do something else. The answer could be, we're going to, we're going to pool our resources together, and we're going to hire a sitter to come, and they're going to be, we've got a big playroom up, in the back or upstairs, and that's where the kids are going to be. And we're going to try to have a discussion while they're screaming and thumping upstairs. Or something like that. I think another option, which this goes to, that we really make time and we make a priority for the things that are a priority to us.
Exactly.
So another option is, you may prefer to, be in group together, husband and wife, but you could be in a season of family where that's just not possible.
Yeah.
So yes, it's 2 nights out of the week. But dad could go to the group one night, and obviously the kids are with mom, and then mom goes to the group another night, and the kids are with dad. Or, I don't have the catalog in front of me, I'm not looking at it, but sometimes we have guys groups that meet, in a morning before.
We have one this fall.
And, or they meet on a Saturday morning, early breakfast groups. So dad could go to the breakfast group, and then that, mom's probably getting the kids ready for school and all that normally, and then he's just make sure he's home at night. So if you're in a season where we know we need to be in a group, we want to make that a priority, well, this is part of bearing our own load, is, well, maybe we just need to trade off, and when the kids get older, or then we can, or just maybe another semester we can do it, but right now we need to be in separate groups. But I would say the important thing is be in a group. Don't say, well, if we can't be in a group together, we aren't going to be in a group.
Right.
Because then you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on the relationships, and kind of something you said earlier, Rick, about like, well, man, if I had known this, then I could have been benefiting from this for, the last year or 2 years or 3 years. And so it's one of those things, the more you delay, you never get to receive that benefit. Yep. So, childcare, it's a real thing, and we know that that's, it is something you have to deal with, but we somehow we're able to solve it when we want to go out on a date, or we want to go to a movie, or we want to go to a sports
free tickets
thing.
To the Cowboys game.
Yeah.
You're going to find.
You would find a way for your kids to be taken care of.
Find a way to get kids.
And in the whole scope of eternity, group is way more important than watching the Cowboys lose again, right? I mean, okay, sorry, I'd like to see them win, but
we're all thinking the same.
So then it reminds me of a meme I saw of someone who decided to mow their yard to look like an end zone because they wanted to make sure that no Cowboys fan would find their yard.
That's also like the one where, the next time we're under a severe weather threat, you just go over to Arlington to the stadium because they have a hard time having any touchdowns there. So we could go on and on. But anyway, we're trying to offend everybody.
That's right.
Today.
Let's do it.
So, but the point, we talked about this a few weeks ago in one of the sermons, is that whatever is important to us, we find a way, and we make it a priority.
Yeah, one thing I also just want to bring out that we haven't touched on that just tangentially is you mentioned, one of the goals of groups is care. And I think that's important for people just to think through what that looks like. If you've never been in a group before, it's so meaningful and impactful to watch care happen in a different way, because you get to know people and all of a sudden, because that's just life. Life is full of all of a suddens. When you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and when you have another group of people that are around you that have gotten to know you, that you've been a part of their life, they've been part of your life, that when that day arrives for you, when the bottom falls out, there's people around that are going to come around alongside and help you. I remember when I was younger again, I was in younger people groups, but I think we had, in one semester, we had like 12 different moves. We literally, because no one wants to move.
You didn't move 12 times.
No, I didn't move 12 times.
Okay.
But within that group, we helped with all these different, because it was people moving a lot. It was just a weird season. But I remember at work one day, I talked to one of my absolute best employees, and it was on a Monday. And I said, "How was your weekend?" He said, "Oh, it was all right." I said, "Oh, I could tell something's there." He said, "Well, yeah." He said, I helped somebody move. And I said, "Oh, what was that like?" He said, "Well, I have a pickup," and they knew I had a pickup. I was there, and the guy's uncle was there.
Oh, no.
And the three of us moved their home, or whatever, their stuff. I don't know if it was an apartment or a house, but anyway, and I'm like, and I told him, I said, "I'm really sorry to hear that. Ouch." And he was the point where he's like, "I don't know if I want to keep my pickup because people asked me to move." And I said, this may, I didn't want to sound weird, but I don't have a concept of that, just because I have a pickup and I'm delighted I have a pickup. And as I've gotten older, people are more likely to borrow my pickup now than it is, because they're not expecting me to necessarily be the guy that's helping lift stuff as much. But anyway, I've just seen over the years at Hope, when there's a move, people show up. I mean, there's 15, 20, maybe more people there to help with a move. And it's just not this incredibly horrific day that takes the entire day to get it done and you just feel miserable. You got people help. It's almost a fun event. People actually literally have fun at moves. And so that's just an example. But caring there's all kinds of areas of care that groups can really set up people for success.
Yeah, and that just goes back to, part of the way God designed us. He designed us for relationships. He designed us to have, first and foremost, a relationship with Him through His Son, Jesus. And then He designed us to have a relationship with other people. And, I think there are the extreme cases of people going off and, being totally alone. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen, years ago I watched, there was this show about these people living up in Alaska. Now there's more like the homesteader shows, but even in the homesteader shows, they need the community to help them do certain things, right? So we need that. So we actually need community. We need people in our lives when we have those tragedies. I mean, I think, we were talking really about childcare, but you and I know of how many stories of people where they had something difficult happen. They need to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night with, one of the adults, or take one of the kids. Well, if you both need to go because it's one of the adults, who's going to stay with the kids? Well, you've got people close to you that will come over to your house and in the middle of the night. I remember years ago, we had some friends that they were having another baby, and it was like, we got to go to the hospital at 1 a.m. And we happened to live in the same neighborhood as them, and it was like, can you come over and be here with the other kids? And they actually, this was one of those like birthing center births where they actually got back home with the baby before the other kids even woke up.
Oh my goodness!
They didn't even know what was happening. So I thought that was kind of funny. But at first, I'm thinking they're gonna come downstairs and be like, "What are you doing here?" But it was that quick. But but there was a responsible adult in the house because of community. So it's so important.
Yeah, so important. And people have. We've over the years, there's been lots of opportunities where group members have helped bring meals over post a challenging time, or maybe after a baby or whatever. And that's just really practical, and it's really helpful. So it's just another great plug for why groups are so important. So
Brian, how about if we kind of wrap this up, but we do it in this way? Let's each of us make our best, sort of offer / encouragement, invitation. Let's call it our best invitation for people to join a group. If you've never been, especially if you've never done a group at Hope,
right,
and you are thinking about, maybe I should. I've seen the catalog. I've heard you guys talk about it. Like, sort of close with the best invitation. All right, and this is also kind of spontaneous, so we'll have a little bit of fun. Nobody came in here with their best
sales
offer.
Pitch? Is that what this is?
I guess.
There, but
I'll start so that it's easily forgotten. So I'm highly introverted, and I'm a homebody, so I'm fine to be home.
So you host?
I have hosted, but I think even on the ones that I've gone to, it has been like when I was first coming to Hope, being in a group was how I found, like, it really shrunk the church, and I got to know people and became friends with people. But I think, now I'm more familiar with the people of Hope. And so like, I'll see everybody on Sunday. So, there's the temptation on my side that being in a group isn't that crucial, because I work here, I know people, right, and all those kinds of things. Yeah. I'm really familiar. So I was, this is not how you should sell anything. But I really was walking around my neighborhood, talking to the Lord about, this heart problem I was having of not wanting to be in a group. And I realized it really is something I don't want to do. If I'm totally honest, I don't want to be in a group. But I know that I will want to have been in a group. And so if I want to have been in the group, I'm going to have to go. So, because I know the benefits of it. On the front side, if you ask me at this stage of life, do you want to do anything spontaneous and out of the blue? And just, no, I feel like my time is really compacted, and I don't want to do anything. But there are all kinds of opportunities that God provides in the inconvenient moments that if you don't take advantage of them, you just totally missed out. So that's not a really good sale.
Are you basically saying groups are the vegetables? Like, we need to eat them?
No, I'm saying they probably look like vegetables.
Oh, they look like, okay.
They look like vegetables now, but then once you've gotten in there, it's really, much better than...
They taste like ice cream.
Tastes like fruit.
Or something. Let's go with fruit.
Okay.
It's not quite as detrimental as ice cream, but yeah. That's why I wanted to go first. So you guys are going to come with something much nicer.
I want to go second because I want to steal Matt's idea.
Okay.
And that is, I think...
You're going to invite Matt to your group?
Maybe.
Okay.
Your pitch of who do you want to be in 5 years will largely determine, you talked about the books you read and the people you hang out with. Mm-hmm. And I think if you want to hang out with people that are really walking with Jesus, your life's going to be pointed in a much better direction.
That's good. So I want to go back to something I talked about a few weeks ago about how we budget for godliness, right? If we want to grow, if you're a follower of Jesus, and that means you belong to him, and you need to grow and become more like him. You need to let him change you, transform you from the inside out. It doesn't just happen by sitting there. So we actually have to get it into our lives. And I think that the threefold approach of Sunday morning is really important. we need to be in church. And Brian, you did a sermon on that a couple of weeks back now, or several weeks back now, talking about the corporate worship, how it fuels our private worship, our quiet time. So Sunday morning is really important, but if that's the only hour we ever spend in God's word and with God's people, then we aren't going to grow much. Like, in fact, we're missing out significantly if that's all we do. And then we need to spend daily time with God in his word and praying. But as we were talking about earlier, we're meant for relationships. So we can learn a lot about God and God's ways through reading his word on our own, and he can point out different things, but it's actually when we get in community with other people that we really can grow. In fact, there's a whole section we sometimes refer to in the scriptures as the one another, as all the one another statements. You can't do any of those by yourself. So you can have a really great quiet time, and God can really be speaking to, you can bring personal conviction of sin, and God can do a lot in your quiet time. But if you're never around God's people, then you can't practice a good portion of what we find in Scripture, and then you can't learn and benefit from the other people, and they can't benefit from you. And it's not exactly a group example here, but I think it applies. And I just remember something that I was in a class in the last couple of years, and had a really bad attitude about this class, and I just didn't want to be there. And I thought it was going to be these great. I'm in a program working on a doctorate, and I'm like, these classes are going to be amazing, and I'm going to just learn so much. And I had very high expectations for what I was going to be learning, and my expectations were not met. And I gave one of those 2 honest end of the semester reviews, and I got rebuked by my professor, and rightly so. And basically, this is like very Baptist seminary, and he Brother Matt, I need to challenge you with something. And basically he said, you only showed up at that class thinking what you could get from it, and you weren't thinking about your other classmates. And in particular, there was a couple of younger guys that had a lot less ministry experience than me. And he's like, you could have taught the content from this class. There's more to the class than the content. There's the relating, there's the connecting, and I think you really missed an opportunity to be a help and encouragement to these younger guys. And that was one of those ones where it was like, he was actually pretty gentle, but thought he was being pretty hard. But the Holy Spirit was like, it's one of those, let me think about it. And while you're saying, let me think about it, he's like, that's what you did. And fortunately, though, I was in a cohort where that means we were going to have classes together. Again? More classes. Yeah. Same group of guys, just the classes rotate. And so I really took that challenge, and I was like, all right, for the next class, I need to learn some things, and, that's part of the process, but not what can I give, but what can I give? So I think there are some people who they need to go to group not for themselves, but how they can be a help and an encouragement to the other people. And as you're there and thinking about others, that you are going to be helped and you are going to be encouraged as well. So that's my pitch.
It's good.
And if that doesn't work, just do it. Blame it on me. Give it a try. And do it.
Well, it fits into your message from last week about generosity, right? About just giving. Giving is there's just something about that. When we give ourselves, when we give up our time, treasure, talent, it changes us more than and it can be a real help to others, of course.
So, big day is Sunday, which means that groups launch the following Tuesday.
Correct.
So if you have not yet signed up for a group, now the time is nigh, as they say. So you can, obviously you can come by the Welcome Center on Sunday, grab group catalog, you can always go to the groups page on our website and find the most current listing of the groups and sign up there and all that stuff. So get in a group, and we'll see you back here for the next Sunday Extra podcast.